Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. This is Mary May. I am joining you on a Wednesday this week only, um, for our leadership nuggets. As I had some conflicts that was happening yesterday, and I appreciate you joining me on a different day for your morning leadership nuggets and conversation. And as we say every time that we get together, is that before you make any decision, make sure you have your cup of tea, cup of coffee, or even a smoothie so that we can like dive in to the leadership nuggets that we have identified for this week's conversation. So, good morning. I am joining you this morning with my special cup of tea that has some herbal situations going in there. Wanted to do something a little different. I did have my coffee yesterday on Tuesday, but wanted to ensure that I had something to stay hydrated while I come through and share this conversation with you. So the purpose of this space and the nuggets that I share is trying to help you understand and identify ways that you can grow and build your leadership toolkit, but then also acknowledging ways in which your toolkit may be impacted by things that you haven't paid attention to. So, as I have worked with individuals who work in management, middle management, um, upper management, I have found different things that kind of break the glass ceiling, move the curtain and pull it back that people are not usually prepared for when they go and grow to the other side of their leadership journey. And so, my intention and purpose in the work as a leadership strategist is to help you identify and break those patterns that impact you on a day to day basis. And of course, if you are interested in scaling up and working higher and not allowing to be limited by a glass ceiling, you would need some of those strategies. So I offer breakthrough strategy sessions to kind of understand and understand what your experience is on a day-to-day basis so that we can kind of peel back the layers and be able to position yourself in a different way and help you gain a strategy that's going to help you level up. So in understanding what it is that you're experiencing on externally, as well as understanding what you're internalizing that's impacting your ability, that you're communicating things that may or may not match what you're striving towards, is my niche, is my sweet spot, is my ability to kind of help you peel back those layers of the onion with doing the work necessary so that you can show up unapologetically in your leadership role. And so for today's nugget, how we're going to dive in is looking at microaggressions. Looking at microaggressions. And looking at how they're impacting your productivity and promotion. So microaggressions, they show up in so many different ways in casual conversations and project assignments and getting to know people and their intonation and how they speak to you, how they acknowledge your skill set and so forth like that. But I want to just take a moment to kind of break down, some of the things that microaggressions and how they exist and how they impact your ability in the workplace, um just being productive, just being, unapologetically you without it doesn't really have an influence one way or another sometimes on how you can scale up. However, there's a barrier that you're communicating or possibly engaging in that you're not quite sure that you're doing. So again, in that breakthrough conversation where we peel back the layers, you and I would get that opportunity to explore that a little bit more, and then you could determine how it is you would want to move forward. So I want to share before I really dive in that engagement is welcome, and I thank you for joining me on a Wednesday and not normal Tuesday for this conversation, whether it's live or on the replay. Feel free to share this information with anybody that you know in leadership or in life or in relationships that you feel can benefit from the tools and nuggets that we share today. And I look forward to, continuing to support as needed. So last week we talked about like time bias, and so that time bias ties into microaggressions in the sense that the biases that we sometimes misunderstand or misestimate the time that we could have saved or lost in a conversation, and our perception of how we make decisions or our perception of how we take action is sometimes impacted on the bias that we have on how much time we truly and authentically, have in a situation. So in thinking about like the time bias and thinking about the collaboration or the intentions around microaggressions, the they go hand in hand in regards to how we get distracted in making sure that we're doing the task that we need, that we are understanding the communications that are being said and not said, and how that happens or how that translates into higher level conversations. So some of those higher level conversations, are definitely in areas that we all sometimes can take for granted. So let's first make sure that we understand what exactly a microaggression is. So a microaggression is, if a brief definition is like that small off the cuff comments that reflect an assumption that is made about someone based on their element of their identity, an element of their practices, foods that you may eat. If you are a person that exercises and you're motivated to that, like stuff that is very, very important to you. If somebody is making small off the cuff, unrelated, uninvited, comments about those things, they may be making not only assumptions about what's something that's important to you, but they're creating a bias, and that actually sets in the tone of shifting your relationship and shifting how you communicate with them, because you may feel that this off the cuff comment is like so unnecessary, but you tend to just kind of go with the flow and hope that you can understand that person's intention, that they didn't mean it, and we usually brush it off. But the cost of brushing it off means that it gives them permission to say these statements that are known to you as being inappropriate, unkind, or anything like that, again and again. And then every time it happens, it sets you back. It sets the tone or change your energy on how you were ready to come to that meeting, you were ready to have this conversation, and then they just say something that's just like off the cuff, appearing to be a compliment, appearing to attempt to understand you and genuinely express, like, something that's of interest to them. However, it's not really it's not really received well, because in the context it might be a one down comment, or it might be looking at you where they're at the top and looking down on you in some particular way. And so the other part is that when you're looking at like microaggressions, you also can consider that they are, like I said, intended to be a compliment. They're generally expressed questions, but they're unintentional expressions of bias and or possibly leading towards racism, sexism, ageism, and other elements of discrimination that people really don't recognize. Well, I can't say that they don't recognize, but there are so many ways in which discrimination shows up in a variety of different ways. And sometimes when it's off the cuff and it's casual, people will understand it, that their intentions was not to have a bias of time, a bias of culture, a bias of, what it is that works for them or what works for you, but that they're trying to get to know you. But in the trying to get to know you, you have to actually ensure that you extinguish the element of dismissing how you feel or dismissing something that's important to you the very first time, or in the earlier times of experiencing such of a situation, because not doing so gives them permission to continue to interact with you in this particular manner, and it doesn't really give strength to you building as a team and to you building in the workplace. And so when you think about some of the most common workplace situations that you might hear, it could also be if somebody's talking about how articulate that you are, or that you speak well for uh being from wherever you're from, or you speak well. Like, what do they mean you speak well? You are in a space of leadership, you are in a space of a professional setting, and you are speaking according to the tone and conversation that should be there. But when they're saying it as a with the intention of being a compliment, but depending on the tone and the context, it could really be condescending. It could really be, oh, we didn't believe that you had the capability to, you know, excel in this particular situation. And so, as a person of color, we're not expected to have full command of our own language and be able to code switch within and in and out variety of different vernacular. So then, therefore, that is one way that people of color, melanated individuals, get attacked at the water cooler conversations, or at the conversations when you're starting the Zoom or a video meeting, and people are just making small talk before the meeting actually starts. Those simple tasks, maybe not always in intentions like in that immediate space, but it might be very valuable to say, can we talk after the meeting? Can we have a separate conversation and help educate a person on what their actions are and what their behaviors, or how they're othering you in a public situation? And what I mean by othering you is like it's sending a message that what is unique quality, what is a unique strength, what is something that you do just well, that it becomes foreign and different to whomever the audience is. And because of that, they're creating a sense of you not belonging, or you being so unique that they kind of push you off to the side and give you a select set of activities and tools, versus having an acceptance and understanding what works and what doesn't work. So the where are you from, where did you grow up, these are all off the cuff conversations that you'll think is very, very casual. But by the person, how they internalize it can be a very, very microaggression that makes them feel that they're on the defense of always having to explain and qualify how it is that they show up in the workplace, and why is that even necessary as far as where they're from. Now, if they have a different perspective, they have a different value system, it could be beneficial, but it's all in how you frame the conversation, or how you frame the comment of getting to learn what it is. But you also have to realize that if you have experienced a high level of microaggressions, or these type of where are you from, you talk very well, not really having a sense of belonging at a previous work situation, and somebody is genuinely asking you at a new situation, are you carrying that suitcase of issues, of things that you did not resolve from a previous employer, previous team that you worked with, into this one without giving them full, unapologetic grace of helping them understand, of them policing how it is that you interact? So sometimes when we respond defensively, or we're like, why do you ask, or why do you want to know that, or something like that, we're not realizing that sometimes people are genuinely trying to get to know us. So you have to really kind of read the room and understand that you're always in a leveling up conversation, because every conversation is an interview. So in thinking about how you correct someone, or you teach someone, or you give them like education about who you are and how you stand in a space, that you are a part of the puzzle of their team, it's good to be mindful if you have unresolved feelings, thoughts, experiences with the same question as being asked in a new situation, that you're not holding them accountable from the previous situation. And so then there comes to like the cultural acceptance versus agreements. And so, like, sometimes when it comes to like that cultural acceptance versus agreements, you can agree to understand a person's unique ability, but you may be just totally unaware. And if you are totally unaware, again, it's how you ask the question. You ask, is it possible that we can grab lunch? Is it possible that we can learn more about your perspective on how you came to this analysis or this object in a project, versus just blindly not trying to understand why they have such a unique footprint on why they think that this strategy will work better. And so if the person has sensitivity to realizing how they can be inclusive in that environment and not be challenging, then they will use sensitivity and ask the questions, reframe it in a non-judgmental way, such that they have an understanding of competence, and that they're trying to proceed with the proficiency that they once were unaware of the things that they said, did, reached over your food, made an assumption based on your ethnic background or aesthetic that you are more skilled in one area than another. It takes really understanding that some people are really totally unconsciously aware of the things that they're just unaware of or that they didn't have exposure to. So and I'm not giving an excuse, but I'm giving the awareness that we sometimes load up the clip, we sometimes load up the situation from previous scenarios and not recognizing how this may be a unique individual, a unique situation in which someone is trying to get to know us. So, other situations, that people may, come in contact with, especially when working with women in leadership, is that people may say, well, why are you so angry? And it's not that you're necessarily angry. It's not that that deep sigh was meant to dismiss what was being said. It was just a matter of reaction, but are you policing my tone? Are you policing my tone and internalizing that? Why do I have to be angry? Why can I not be passionate? Why can I not be determined? Why can I not be dedicated? When you immediately jump to the conclusion that the reaction that someone gives you is not the reaction that you want, and then you project that they must be angry versus excited, or angry versus frustrated and irritated, you're not giving the permission in this space that they're not necessarily angry. You're trying to police their tone and tell them how to be. Now, again, there may be some learning curves of that code switching where you recognize that maybe some of your body language, some of the things that you say from a cultural awareness and acceptance, conversation, that some people talk loud and some people talk very soft and reserved. Some people in ethnic cultures have great eye contact, where in some places, in some cultures, eye contact is being disrespectful. So it takes having that inclusionary conversation that you're not always policing what is not native to you, but understanding that there are unique consequences, there are unique situations that help individuals not feel like they're being othered, or that they are, having the intentionality. And yes, having that you're focused, you're not angry, you're just focused and want to ensure that you understood what the person is asking of you, requiring of you in this particular task. And you may have gotten really, really excited, and they're taking it as really, really aggressive. So that's one of the misreads for people of color in that dynamic of leadership, is that our excitement, our passion, our ability to like really be intuitive and ready to dive in is sometimes taken as we're aggressive and that we're attacking and that, we're doing different things. But different cultural backgrounds, different levels of who you are, it's just a matter of understanding and understanding. So it's a matter of making that switch, that code switch, that understanding that action taken of how it is that they learn to work with you, and recognizing that what they see as anger and aggression is really their dedication, commitment, focus, and authentic emotions on wanting to make sure that the job is done well. So in making sure that the job is done well, you're recognizing that your impact and your influence has strength, but that you have to make sure that um you're not dismissing the responsibility of the different situations that could occur. And so when you are acknowledging versus denying what's happening, you have personal reflection and acknowledging who is actually responsible for how it is that you read and understood those different conversations or that intonation. Then you begin to understand where you may live with bias, and you may live with the understanding of just not having clarity on who your team is. And not having a clarity on who your team is means that you would benefit from maybe having, not necessarily team building activities, but ways in which either you're sharing a group lunch together, you're sharing, something throughout the different meetings that you're having, so that people can assess and identify what's the appropriate way to connect with you, and what's the way of, that may be inappropriate and unacceptable. Because the mindset shift that it would take in recognizing if you are leading and guiding every interaction from a microaggression mindset means that you are feeling elite, or you're elite versus the non-elite people within the office or within the team. Or you have the management style of top down: do this because I said so, don't question me. That's a microaggression. That's not really building the productivity aspect of your team, of wanting to do the job in such a wonderful way, because it's top down. You're not including their ideas, including the respect of the uniqueness that they can offer to the conversation. And the mindset of someone who leads with the intentions, be it conscious or unconscious, from a microaggression, attacking, aggressive situation, becomes a need for a mindset realignment. Because in the mindset realignment, if you are the top of the team, if you are the leader in the team, you're the one that people look to. Are you creating a toxic workspace, or are you creating a workspace that could be realigned based on every time a new person comes into the team, or every time a new person shares a new unique idea around how we can do something, that you're embracing it to understand it versus projecting it to reject it? So rejecting is like not accepting your personal role and not accepting your responsibility on the influence that you have on how someone sees themselves in that leadership ability, and see themselves as having the opportunity to share their ideas and their gifts. So that personal responsibility: are you projecting, or are you receiving the situations that people are offering up to you? Are you dismissive to what they're saying or what they're offering, or are you embracing it to understand, like, what is it that can be done differently, and how it is that you can support individuals? So when you're looking at how the impact for you on a day-to-day basis, you are constantly in a mode of, trying to figure out the resolutions, but then also having that personal commitment to ensure, one, that you're not misread, but then also that you're not mistreated. And you always have to understand that every conversation, again, is an interview, but also every conversation, every interaction with a team member, be it that they're on a side by side level with you, they are someone who reports to you, or somebody that you report to, there's always an opportunity for you to be teachable, for you to be reachable, and to be responsive to the information that you learn. Yes, you can educate others, but you have to be first at a place of peace and harmony, where you're not chopping up everybody that comes to you, that you are embracing the cultural shift, that the cultural shift, not necessarily just as a melanated person of color, but the cultural shift in the dynamics that exist in the office place and how exactly that they manifest to impacting how it is that we work together. And so if you find that you are impacted by things that people are saying, things that people are doing, things that people are maybe projecting and believing that you said, or believing that they understand what it is that you have put out there, but it leaves you where you are kind of dwelling in the thought of, okay, well, did I do this right? Did I say this right? Or why are they picking on me? Why did they identify me for this versus the other person? Are you overthinking something that has been said? That's taking time out of your productivity. Because if you're just not taking what they said, be it critical assessment, be it critical inventory, be it critical, information that's going to help you build and grow, then if you're overthinking, that time that you took to overthink, rehearse, recreate, make all of these different hypotheses is taking you away from your productivity. And it's also you internalizing whatever that conversation meant to you without having the authentic ability to just say, hey, can we talk? Because I want to make sure I understood this differently. Or you just saying, okay, look, Mary, you tripping. That happened at the last job. Why am I bringing that conversation from the last job and the last team and the team before that made me feel some type of way, and the team before that made me feel like I wasn't capable? But look, I have achieved and I have come to a place in my career where I can show my skill unapologetically. And this team doesn't know what happened in the previous thing, but I'm about to bring it up and expose it because I'm dwelling and I'm stuck and I'm overthinking. And because I'm stuck trying to like fix and understand what has happened, more so not get stuck, because you're creating your own glass ceiling when you get stuck. Remember, there's no glass ceiling in the reality of how it is that you choose to level up. The glass ceiling is how you choose to believe and value your ability and your qualities on being able to level up. So if you are find yourself over functioning, then maybe reframe how you use that time of reflection and productivity, and looking at what has been said to say, okay, what can I do differently, not necessarily to accommodate, but what can I do differently to be confident in how it is that I'm speaking, that I'm not having sleepless nights, and that I'm not boring my friends or my spouse or anybody over recreating these stories over and over again, because now the microaggression has happened to you at work, right? And if you're stuck and you're recreating the stories over and over again in your head, trying to understand what you have experienced and what has happened to you in this current situation, whether you bring it in history or not, your friends, your spouse, your family members, your children are now experiencing microaggressions of harassment directly and indirectly from you, because they have heard this story again and again and again. And it's like it's time to change the noise and time to take action, to not have the migraines, to not experience stress, to experience where you're sleeping better at night, and you have the opportunity to level up in your career and learning how to take action differently around things that have been known to you or experienced by you as a microaggression in the workplace. Because if you don't check what has occurred, then you end up recreating it and not being teachable or reachable in various situations. So when you embrace the cultural shift of your role and your responsibility to how a microaggression actually lives and sustains itself, then you begin to have that ability to take action and recognize that microaggressions is just like a timeline. It's like a timeline that for families, for friends, or anything that you're doing, it takes that ability where it moves through a situation in stages and in steps. And so, do you want to unlock that ability, or do you want to continue to stay in a stuck situation? So, the actions, when it comes to undoing and unlearning a microaggression scenario, you would want to, for action, you want to acknowledge the questions. Acknowledge the questions, be it appropriate or inappropriate, but acknowledge the questions. Acknowledge the questions that people are curious, and hopefully that their curiosity is not coming across as judgment, and recognizing that judgment and curiosity is a very, very thin line. However, the thin line can sometimes come up by how you project, how you react, and how you respond to the variety of things that are coming up, because the curiosity does not necessarily have to be offensive unless you are taking offense to not giving permission to have that growth mindset conversation with someone, where you can teach others, you can tell others about what their actions are that's othering or being dismissive, and how it is and how it impacts the energy in the team. You want to personalize some things, but some things you kind of want to give space, give breathing room for the learning opportunity, for not only you to have the space of being teachable, reachable, for something that's different, but unchecking the bias and helping them understand where there may be bias and where it influences their ability to see your full skill set. And so when they know the impact, it's like they will then think, hopefully in advance, about their statements or actions or requests that they make of certain team members, in a way that they'll want to know, okay, if we ask this question this way to Mary, will she respond, or will it be offensive? Like, I want to be inclusive, be mindful of your words, and be able to be open to taking action, to saying, okay, I want to ask a question. I don't want to be dismissive, because if I'm dismissive, then I'm gaslighting you with my actions and my behaviors of not having interest. So then that way, individuals are now owning their responsibility, owning their unchecked biases, owning their accommodations of being culturally acceptable, culturally aware, culturally unbiased, and hopefully owning that your story has power and that you need to embrace it. So when you embrace it, that next step level conversation helps you to brainstorm, what actions can we take together? What actions can we take in creating this engagement to better understand the influence in the environment, the influence in your judgment and your productivity, where you are now not losing sleep, you are not having an opportunity where you're feeling misunderstood and not heard, because remember that your impact and your influence has great contribution that's always necessary, but the great contribution is always impossible until it's done. So when you have these conversations of helping and guiding someone acknowledge what their actions are and their behaviors that may be um, a microaggression, not only in the workplace, but how you transfer that energy in those conversations into your day-to-day conversations with your family, it's always impossible until it's done. But you have to kind of take yourself out of it to create that strategy, and recognizing your influence, and recognizing how you can better understand what's being communicated and what's not, because that level of communication, or the lack of communication with a clear understanding of the boundaries and how it is that you acknowledge unique differences versus othering, and creating ways that is impacting the team and impacting the individual who is your most effective leader, is you have to just really give space, give breathing room to have those safe, uncomfortable conversations at times, but they're uncomfortable with the intentionality. So make sure that how people may say you're the angry individual, you're not angry, you're passionate, you are dedicated, you're focused, and you have the intentions that you want everything to work out well. But you have to be sure that that is a mutual playing ground. And so for today's conversation, if you are dwelling, overthinking, feeling stuck, or any of that within a microaggression, peel back those layers and look at how it is that they can impact your day-to-day environment and impact your conversations. But then how are you holding yourself accountable, and what is that personal ability of you being teachable, reachable, and responsive in every situation? And so my quote for the morning is: leadership is not a role that someone gets placed in. Leadership is a responsibility that one gets called to. Leadership is not a role that one gets placed in. Leadership is a responsibility that one gets called to. So if you are called to this situation, of course, with every good thing, there's going to be challenges. However, how you deal with the different set challenges, how you choose to grow, how you choose to learn that work balance harmony within a setting, creates your stability as a leader, your stability to not get stuck, your stability to become, where you're not ignored, you're not passed over, and you do gain that sense of promotion that you're looking for, that stability within the work environment where you're not feeling like you have to overthink and overfunction, not only for yourself, but for other team members. You get the opportunity to, just kind of take a step back and unlock your silence so that you can get snatched to that next level of your leadership. It takes work. It takes peeling back the layers, but why not do it with support that's side by side? So, if that sounds like something that would help you or anybody that you choose to share, this live with, then you can also be very clear and be very mindful on how it is that you will be able to learn how to take a step back, realize that some situations are about you and some situations are really not. It may take taking those action steps of acknowledging questions, having curiosity versus judgment, realizing your impact, and being that leader that kind of gives permission to have those open conversations. Excuse me. And realizing that you're decreasing the harmful nature that sometimes, when unaddressed, microaggressions continue to grow and dwell within the office place, then it ends to grow and dwell and manifest within your team, where your team overall is not productive. And so we want to stop that as soon as you can, as soon as you can, and ensure that not only for you, but for your team, that anybody on your team is unapologetically working in the strength and in the accessibility that you want them to be. So the cultural shift is not just necessarily a cultural shift as far as ethnic group that you are identified with, but the cultural shift of the productivity and the level of commitment that your team members have, so that the unchecked bias, the ability to acknowledge versus deny and dismiss, which is a passive aggressive microaggression, like have that mindset shift where the elite versus the non-elite management style can really be assessed, and really looking forward to how it is that you move forward. So that's my nugget for you for this morning. We are normally on Tuesday mornings. This week we needed to do Wednesday, so I thank you for hanging out with me on a Wednesday morning, having your cup of coffee or tea. I got my tea this morning with the Leadership Nuggets with Mary May, myself, helping you see the breakthrough of the things that people don't talk about, of how it is that you can sustain yourself when you are in that leadership role, and how it is that you can sustain yourself moving forward unapologetically. So, as with every week, I enjoy the conversation and space that we have with each other. I thank you for your engagement, both on all platforms that we are, functioning through. And I look forward to talking with you soon. So in the meanwhile, you stay safe, travel safely, have a great and successful day and week, and I'll catch you next week. Take care.